Fuck yeah! Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Metacast podcast. As the podcast that improves itself, improves ourselves, and improves the self in general. My name's Ty. I'm going to be your host. And as always, I'm joined by my reasonable co-host, Distance. And tonight we are we're going to compare and contrast the ideas of reasons and excuses. Kind of get into what makes them what do they have in common? What do they have in what's the opposite of common? Uncommon, mythic, rare. What do they have in common, and what do they have in mythic right now? But I do want to like touch on where the idea of this episode came to be, because I think it's actually kind of funny. So I was listening to a song from an artist that I like. Her name is Claire. She goes by the name Grimes in her music, and there was a line that said, "Lately, I just turn them into reasons and excuses." And for some reason, when hearing that line, I was like, what does that mean? Like, what are the differences between those two? And that train of thought led to a podcast topic. And also, coincidentally, did you hear that Grimes and Elon Musk had their baby?
Oh no, I didn't hear about that. I knew that was happening. I didn't know that it was happened.
I wanna show you the name of their.
Oh my god! Oh shit.
I'd love to get your opinion on this. I put the child's name in chat.
Oh my god, that is just fucking kill me now.
So apparently,
and I thought, oh fuck, and I thought that like the rhymey names were bad enough, like Caden, Aiden, Jaden.
I don't even know how to pronounce it. I have I have no clue how to pronounce it. So Grimes did tweet something that kind of explains the choice, which is
shit.
So X is the most common variable in mathematics, the unknown variable. That I don't know what that symbol is where an A and E is connected. It's used in words like aether and things like that. I'm not really sure how to say that, but that symbol is apparently an elven, her idea of an elven spelling of the idea of AI, or love of artificial intelligence. And then the A12 was the precursor to the SR-71, and it's both her and Elon's favorite aircraft. It's kind of like, I do like the idea that it's like a no weapons, no defenses, just like speed, great in battle, non-violent. I love the top comment I saw on this was like, thanks, that didn't clear anything up. Or like, thanks, that didn't help at all.
Yeah, I mean, that's wow.
It's pretty interesting.
I don't feel like any of the explanation of that is a reason. I feel like they're all excuses for the name.
Ooh, that's a
dude. This was not rehearsed, by the way.
Not at all. That was, dude, master of segues. Anything. Holy shit. But yeah, I that is actually a really good point. I think that it comes down to that. So yeah, let's jump right into it. The first, like, what in your opinion are the differences between reasons and excuses? I think I do want to, like, I like to define things. I do want to go to the two dictionary definitions that I pulled up. I think this is interesting because there's almost no difference as far as the definition goes. The dictionary that I found, the definition for a reason was a cause, explanation, or justification for an event or action. And the definition for an excuse is a reason or explanation put forward to defend or justify a fault or offense. So it does kind of, like, the only real difference as far as those go is it does kind of specify that an excuse has to do with a fault or offense. But other than that, there's a if you were to like draw a Venn diagram between those two definitions, there's a lot of overlap there.
Yeah, there is. I think that at least outside of the dictionary definition, what is in this case your personal like thoughts of each of them words right there? Oh shit, I'm using the wrong mouse. You can probably hear it in the microphone getting all wobbly.
Oh, I did hear that. Oh, you're good. But yeah, the so to me, so before doing any sort of like preparation for this episode, my main idea was that there was like one reason for something happening, and that anything else was kind of an excuse. But as I've started to read other people's thoughts on this, that's changed my mind a little bit, and I'm kind of have what I would say is a more nuanced opinion. But I don't want to just like, parrot things that I've read today preparing for this. That was my honest initial idea, was that it's like, oh well, like there's one thing was the actual reason for something happening, and if you're trying to say that it's something else, that's probably an excuse. So in my mind, it was almost like a incorrect reason equals excuse, but I don't necessarily believe that that's 100% true anymore. What about for you?
Well, I think that in this case, as contrasting and comparing the two, I think in this case, semantics are almost completely irrelevant because the colloquial meaning is totally different. And I think that the key in that lies in definition number 2 of reason.
What is that definition? Read that.
The power of the mind to think, understand, and form judgments by a process of logic.
Well, but that is more like the ability to reason, right? Not like
it's a noun.
Yeah.
But there's also the verb, which is think, understand, and form judgments by a process of logic.
Yeah.
But once again, this is not Symantec. No, not the company that makes the antivirus software. Semantic. Because I think that typically, like colloquially, what we understand it to be is reason is a solid, well-founded, when contrasting with colloquially what we mean is excuse. Reason is a solid, well-founded fact that states necessarily why a task cannot be completed or why a thing is not so. Whereas an excuse, we typically colloquially think of it as, and this is kind of my thoughts on it too, a way to sort of defend or justify the indefensible.
Okay.
To give a way to sort of like flake out or like weasel out or cop out on something that we need to be doing. That's usually what people think of.
So in your mind then, does it, like, can something ever be both? Or are they mutually exclusive?
The only time that they can be both in my eyes is when you have an excuse letter given to your teacher for being late.
Well, yeah, that was actually,
I don't feel tardy.
That was like an example that I was going to go to was, like, for instance, why were you late to work? I was late because my alarm didn't go off. That's in my mind almost both the reason and an excuse, because it's like, for I guess, like, to step back 1 second, then I guess the nuanced opinion that I've developed while really looking into this is that reason has a lot to do with like actually taking accountability for your part in what happened, versus an excuse kind of shifts blame away from yourself. So in that situation, like, that is like a technical reason, it's like, okay, well, literally the reason why I'm late is because I didn't wake up in time, which had to do with my alarm didn't go off. Maybe the power died and my phone didn't charge and it died and my alarm didn't go off. But it's also an excuse because there's other steps you could have taken to ensure that didn't happen.
Yeah, like there's actually a red flag for me with dating or any other like personal relationship, like a friend or whatever. A red flag is that if I hear somebody claim to be a victim of their circumstances more than like maybe 3 times in a week, then it's typically a red flag for me, depending upon the situation. Because I've actually found from experience there are a lot of people that will blame circumstance for things that they've done.
Yes. Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, it's interesting though, because if you look at the definitions, I mean, they're one and the same. But like, I mean, we can lawyer through it and play word games with this all day.
Well, it's like you were saying, like,
because we recently talked about why we didn't both go to law school.
I know, yeah, right. But just like you were saying, like in a dating situation, like if you let's say you had a date with someone, You show up to the restaurant or wherever the date is supposed to be, and you're there on time and you're waiting for them. And then they show up 15 minutes later and oh, I'm sorry, it was traffic. That's an excuse, right? Because like you both had to deal with traffic. It's not like you teleported there. You know, it's like it's just that like, okay, well, I left at an amount of time that let me make it here on time, and you did not. We both dealt with traffic.
Yeah, I mean, I've actually been late. And for the record, it's always coffee. At one specific coffee shop that we've been to before, it was not it was a date. We were on a date. And the thing is I think I was late for that. But I didn't say anything. I didn't say traffic. It's like, well, this road's always a cluster foxtrot. There's always traffic here. Yeah. So, but yeah, for me, it's like I've been late for an actual date before at that exact coffee shop. And I've shown up and I've been like, look, I recognize that my tardiness probably looks like this was not an important affair to me. Mm-hmm. But sometimes I have a problem with managing time. And this is one of those moments. So I'm really sorry. And I hope it doesn't affect the tone of the rest of the date.
Well, if anything,
at that point,
I would take it as positive. Yep. Yeah.
I was like, I'm getting laid. like, honesty.
Midday lunch coffee date. That's bold. That is bold.
Yeah, just kidding. It's that's the thing about coffee dates is that if someone's interesting and you kind of vibe and enjoy each other's company, it does usually turn into like, hey, are you hungry? That kind of thing. Or would you like to have a shift change and switch from the stimulants to the depressants?
What? Oh, like start drinking? Hey.
Yeah, girl.
Gotcha.
Like whiskey, you know what I mean?
I got this bottle of Valium. You trying to tap into this right now? How do you feel about depressants? We could... But yeah, like I do think that's the biggest thing that stands out to me is the personal responsibility. When you give a reason, at least in most situations that I can think of, I do this a lot, where when I think, I kind of tilt my head this way and look up. I've noticed that like so many frames as I've like gone through trying to like do edit stuff for this, there's just this look of me just like always like looking at something up there, no idea what it is. But no, I do think that a lot of it has to do with accepting personal responsibility. A reason is more often than not admits your actions and how they led to whatever consequence. And I think also going forward, a reason implies that there's going to be some other further action. You know, it's like if you're giving an excuse for something, a lot of times it pushes off the blame to something else and it doesn't require any sort of change or any sort of further action on your part. It's like, oh, well, true. I didn't do this because that happened. There's nothing that I need to work on. Versus like a good example that I read this guy talking about was the reason why you're not going on a bike ride right now. Maybe you have a broken leg. That can be an actual reason. You know, you're not gonna go on a bike ride with a broken leg. However, in 6 weeks, when your leg has healed and you're capable to ride and you're still not, that wasn't really the reason, right? Like there's something else. Yeah. That was basically a reason you were using as an excuse at that point.
Speaking of which, I need to order this new bike saddle. I forgot about it. Because, you know, I could actually say that, and it was funny because I thought about this episode yesterday.
Okay.
Because I was like, oh man, like I'm supposed to ride my bicicleta today. Like I got to ride the bicycle. And I was like, yo, it's fucking raining, bro. It's raining. And then I was like, it's kind of chilly too.
Did it actually rain yesterday?
Well, it did over on this side of town.
Okay. I have lived literally in a like this box that is my room. Apparently there were really bad storms the other night. I had absolutely no idea. Like,
really?
Yeah, no clue. I mean, it was one of the nights that I went to bed super early, and I was in bed by 8 something, asleep by like right after 9, and apparently there were like really bad storms. I had absolutely no idea.
Bro, it was like Hurricane Dead Guy over here, man. Like yeah. It was intense.
Like camping? I'm sorry for that. I apologize for everything that I am, and I'm sorry.
For years that it's all the time with you'd think I wouldn't skip a beat anymore. And it's like constantly with every time with you're not even someone's dad.
I'm not. I'm trying so hard though.
You
I'm
need to
really
be someone
trying.
that, oh shit, you can get the saddle in pink.
Ooh, dude, I want you with a
Bro.
pink. Yeah, I want you to have a pink saddle. I just said I want you with a pink saddle. I don't know what. I think Freud called.
I think that might be a Prince song. Pink saddle.
That definitely sounds like a pink. That sounds like a Prince tribute band.
Dude, I am so down.
You want to start a Prince tribute band called Pink Saddle? Okay, I'm down with that.
Obviously, I'm playing bass. Craig can do vocals. You just need to dust off your guitar and practice for 8 months.
I keep it in a case, so it's not even that dusty. It's just, I would probably need to restring it. Dude, at this point, holy shit. I wonder if there's rusty strings.
Dust off your hands. But there's like, I saw it was kind of like drizzling. It was sort of wet outside. And I was like, there's all these things that I can say right now that some people might actually accept as perfectly rational. I'm like, okay, it's slick outside. I have like road bike tires that are semi-slick. I could possibly, slip and hurt myself, which is actually very unlikely because the place where it matters on the shoulder of the tire, which I never ride on because I don't go that fast, it has treads on it.
Gotcha.
You're not ever really going that fast on a road bike. So I was like, okay, yeah, I can't really slip and fall and die. And then I was like, but it's also really cold. It's like, well, I do have a cold weather jacket intended for this. Like, yeah, but it's not that cold. It's like, well, I do have unzippable vents on the jacket for just such an emergency.
Yep.
And it's like, oh, but you just had a saddle sore recently. Like, well, that saddle sore's healed. It's like, okay. So it's like one of those moments where it's like argue and rebuttal. And to me, that's what thinking is having an argument with yourself. And I was like, anything you have to fucking say right now is definitely an excuse. Like,
yeah,
put on your silly outfit and get out there.
Which, yeah, so, I think it comes down to like in that situation, it would have been. I mean, the reason is I just don't feel like it. That's the reason why you didn't ride. But there may have been reasons that fed into why don't you feel like it.
Yeah.
And those are excuses to the main topic that you're looking at. You get what I'm saying? Like it kind of like that's where kind of reasons become excuses almost, or excuses become reasons. Which yeah.
And like right now, like I can tell you that. See, a lot of this requires being honest with yourself. Is like, what are you actually doing?
Yeah.
So it's like for me, I right now am trying to get back in shape. I'm trying to get nice and lean and stuff like that because I'm not quite as lean as I was. Now I am currently drinking a beer, in my lovely Beer Pride koozie, as I like to call it.
You have a Beer Pride koozie? What is it?
Beer Pride, baby.
Does it actually say Beer Pride on it?
No, it doesn't.
Okay,
it
never
says,
mind.
Says that on it, which is funny because this is not a Miller product in this. Oh my God, I'm plugging everyone's brand. I don't always plug people's brands, but when I do, I have a weird semi-Russian transatlantic accent. I don't know what that was, but it's like I'm trying to get in shape right now, and I'm drinking beer. This is beer number 2. But the reason isn't other than I just like to drink a beer during the podcast because it helps me be more casual.
Yeah.
It feels like chill time when I do that. It's more for a psychological thing than anything else. Is it going against my goal of getting in shape? Yes. There's a bit of alcohol in that. There's quite a lot of carbohydrates. But I accept that, and I recognize that things have to happen tomorrow for me to compensate for that. And I accept that, and I'll do it. But I'm not gonna make a bunch of fucking excuses like, "Oh, I've worked hard, I deserve it." That's just stupid. Did you ever hear Bill Cosby's routine on drinking?
I don't believe so. No.
Okay. I would like to preface this with the fact that I speak on several occasions. Just because somebody does something fucked up does not mean that there weren't good things at some point that came out of their mouth or good things that they did. People are very complex humans, and just because somebody does something fucked up and happens to get caught doing said thing doesn't mean that they didn't do anything or say anything positive. But he has a very funny routine that he says.
Can you please do it in a Bill Cosby voice?
I can try.
Yes.
I don't know if I can do a Bill Cosby impression right now. I'll basically just do Eddie Murphy's impression of Bill Cosby.
I'll settle for that. I'll take it.
Over the years, I have had several people work for me, and you give them 2 days. 2 days. And that's the days they completely destroy themselves. So the weekend comes, and I'm going to get drunk tonight because I deserve to get drunk because I have worked hard, and now I will get drunk.
True.
And then the one thing that I think he was really good at is the microphone sound effects he could do.
Yeah, no,
Like
he was good at that.
like a clink, clink, like spot on sound of like a latch on a stall in a bathroom opening.
Mhm.
But at the end of the routine, it's the person vomiting.
Okay,
It's like,
yeah.
and remember, you deserve this.
Yeah. yeah.
So it's the idea that we rationalize things that may or may not be good for us by like as a reward for something. And in some cases, if you've deliberately structured things in that way, then that's fine.
Mhm.
But I'm not going to make excuses for it right now because I recognize that this goes against my goal.
Yeah. Well, and also, I mean, like in regards to like a goal like that, there's a balance. You know, it's like you can't.
Right.
Well, I mean, you can, but it's not necessarily always the best path to just be like, okay, we're going to do 100% of this and never, you know, like there's a lot of 2 steps forward, 1 step back with a lot of things we do. It doesn't necessarily need to be like, oh, we're always marching forward and you know, like it's like looking at stock graphs. You know, that there's like, as long as it's trending in one direction, it doesn't matter that there's little ups and downs. I think that progress is not always linear. So I think that that's like something that way too many people kind of either lie to themselves about or just like don't really understand.
Did you say stocks? I think you just used your degree. Awesome.
Oh my God. We did it.
You used your degree.
I used my fucking degree.
You just got your money's worth.
Definitely.
I'm just kidding. Anyone else have student debt? But you know, like there's I think that I'm thinking now.
That's usually a good thing. I like thinking.
But then the other thing is thinking results in dead air, which is a bad thing on a podcast. We don't want people like picking up their mobile devices being like, is this thing still working? Oh shit, they just stopped talking, shitty hosts.
We should have frozen too at the same time.
We just like stop moving like
This is great content.
Yeah. The thing is, it's like we basically just made faces of like the worst pause in any movie ever.
Yeah.
So don't use that as a thumbnail, please.
Oh, I'm gonna.
So I think that we pretty well established like what the differences are. Would you say?
Yeah. But did we? I mean, we touched a little bit on how to tell the differences, but is there like practices that you would recommend or think people should try to do to like make sure they understand when something is a reason versus an excuse? Like, is it just simply asking yourself the levels of why, or making sure that you're getting to what's actually a root cause, or what's like a good practice that someone can do to help get to the bottom of that? You're doing your best Ty impression right now with the highlighter.
Step 1, get a highlighter.
Yep. Stylus. I use my well, I know, but for me, I use my iPad as my notes, so I always have a stylus in my hand to like scroll through them. Yeah,
it's not even a pen.
No,
back in my day. So I mean, for me, like I don't know, man. Like I think that basically that whole thing I just went through about the cycling thing, like, is this really a reason why? Like, and some people will say stuff like, oh, well, I'm hypoglycemic, I can tell because I have the cold sweats and the shakes. I'm gonna eat that fucking donut so it'll level out my blood sugar. Woohoo! No.
Yeah.
Why are you hypoglycemic? Well, that's because you haven't like figured out the best way to like eat in what intervals, and you've allowed your blood sugar to become where it is, like, unless you're diabetic, and even then diabetics are very conscious of these things. So you know, so there's a reason why, and eating that donut's not necessarily going to help. You just say it, say the truth. I want the fucking donut.
Have you ever heard of like the 5 whys, or like the 5 why technique?
Nah.
It's basically kind of like I mean, you've been around young children. That's sounds strange, but no, you have like young children in your family. Like you've had that annoying
I'm
like
not allowed within 30 miles of. Just kidding. Yes, I have kids in my family. There's children in my family.
But so do you remember like when they were very young at like, I mean, almost like the post toddler age, and no matter what came out of your mouth, there was just why?
It was always it was a bit more abstract than that, but yeah.
That's basically the idea with this, is with a situation, you ask yourself up to five levels of why. And a lot of times it will help you get to the what is actually the root cause. And I've kind of wondered if that can be applied to this type of, I mean, like for instance, with the riding the bike, it's like, well, why am I not riding? Because it's cold. Well, I don't know, over there it doesn't really. Why is it cold? That doesn't really. It doesn't explore that. But as far as your opinion or your ideas of something, asking yourself why I think this, or why I'm doing this, or why I'm acting in this way, a lot of times you can peel back those layers and get to an eventual truth. And it's like, oh, well, hold on, this is the real reason.
Yeah. Trying to think. Well, I mean, hell, I could go through that. So, okay. I'm not riding my bike today because it's cold.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Why is the fact that it's cold a reason? Why should you not ride your bike because it's cold? Because it will be uncomfortable. Okay.
Well, why does it matter that much that you're uncomfortable?
Because I don't like it. Oh, fuck. We're done. Finished.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
We're there. We didn't even have to get to 5.
It only took 3 whys. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's another thing that I think might be useful, that's usually used in like something that I should have mentioned when we did our self-defense episode, which, by the way, I have another nuanced idea for self-defense I'd like to do later.
Cool. Yeah, I'm down.
Has nothing to do with physically defending your person.
Okay.
Yeah. The OODA loop, have you heard of that?
I have not. No, what is this?
So it's OODA, Observe, Orient, Decide, Act.
Okay.
So it's typically used in a situation where it's, let's say, you hear a very loud sound and you're at work, and you work at a chemical company, and you know that there's certain things that are an explosion hazard. So
Okay.
you observe the situation, you look at what's happening, you're like, okay, I just heard a loud noise. Where am I right now? Okay, I'm in this office area. How far away am I from any flammable items?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they're on the other side of the plant. Okay, how loud was that sound? And then it's like, okay. So the observed part is, here I am. And I'm like, okay, what's happening around you? Orient yourself, like to the room, all that stuff. People's reactions, what's happening outside, what you can hear.
Yep.
Then you need to decide what needs to be done. So it's like, okay, I heard a loud sound. It came from over there, which is consistent where the flammable materials are headed. I'm hearing panic outside in the plant area.
Mm-hmm.
So what do I need to do? I need to get myself and as many people as are nearby out the door to the designated evacuation zone when something like this occurs. So then you act. You say, all right, come on, y'all. Let's get the hell out of here. You know?
Yeah.
Like, we need to go. Everybody, come on. Dude, what are you doing? Get off your computer. Don't save your work. Just fucking go, you know? Then everybody goes. But I think that there's ways where you can use that in this situation, like where observe, orient, decide, act. So it's like you look at your reasons why, you know, your
alleged reasons.
Yeah.
They may be excuses.
And then you sort of give yourself an orientation to those reasons in some way, asking yourself questions about them. And then you decide if any of that is actually valid. And then you act on what you think needs to happen next.
Well,
so
also,
it's like a flow chart, really.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah. But also, it brings me to an idea of like, sometimes is it okay to accept the excuse as long as you're aware of it? Like in the situation of like riding your bicycle, if you come down to the reason, you peel back those layers and you get to the reason of like, I just, I don't really feel like being cold today. Is that good enough? Is the awareness of that good enough? Or does that mean like, okay, I've isolated that this is an excuse. That means I must go ride because I mean,
if you can recognize that if it truly is something that you know you're comfortable with, and it is an action that represents the kind of person that you'd like to be, or it doesn't interfere with the kind of person you'd like to be, then okay. I mean, as long as you recognize it.
When just getting to our central theme of balance, I think if you recognize that there's, you're not like tipping the scales, you're constantly just accepting excuses. It's probably fine to give yourself an excuse every once in a while and accept that as like, oh, well, today's just not the day.
Yeah, I mean, every now and then, I suppose, but it just kind of depends what sort of standards you hold yourself to. I mean, some people have a degree of healthy arrogance where they just know in their heart of hearts that they're better than that.
Yeah.
And those people decide to do the other thing. They decide to do the difficult thing. I think that most people, when they recognize that they're making an excuse or weaseling their way out of things, most people are very uncomfortable with that. So, I mean, every now and then people might accept it, but I think if you truly know that all you're doing is rationalizing and not giving yourself a real reason, then I think that as an adult, most of us should do the other thing.
Yeah, I agree with that.
The thing that we're trying to rationalize as being like the worst thing or whatever. But every now and then I'll make a deal with myself. Like I decided sometimes I'll ride the road bike at like lunch at work, and I took a random turn off of the road that I usually ride on, and I got to this stupid grade hill.
Okay.
It was like, it looked from where I was, it looked like about a 5% grade that went into an 8 and ended at maybe like a 9.5. And I was at the bottom of it, and I was just looking, and I was like, you know what? I can't climb that and then go back to work.
Yeah.
I was like, I can't do it. Like, it's not even possible right now. So, all right, here's what you do. You can turn around and you can go the less steep way all the way back to the office, but you have to go balls to the walls all the way.
Okay.
Like, you're not allowed to let up. Like, you push the hardest gear you can and you crank on those pedals as hard as you possibly can. And that is the only way that you're going to get away with this.
Yeah.
So then for me, it's like, so the reason why it's okay that I don't climb that hill is that because when I take the less steep route uphill, I'm going to be hitting the pedals as hard as I can.
Okay.
But so then, of course,
you're giving yourself like a trade-off there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like making a trade. Like, I recognize that, like, that, maybe I'm making an excuse. I don't know. Like, I got to go back to work. Can't do that. But it's like, well, make it hard another way if you have to.
Yeah.
I mean, that's to me is more like a compromise, I suppose. But I think that when we get to the point where we recognize that, because excuses for most of us tend to be blaming something outside of ourselves.
Yeah.
And then, as Big Dog has said repeatedly, when you hold yourself accountable, then that's when good things happen.
Well, I've got an interesting situation that I wanted to bring up. It's well, of course, like, okay, so it's a World of Warcraft situation. I do spend a lot of time playing that game, but there was something recently where I was isolating what I thought was the reason for something, and then kind of found out that wasn't the reason. But it's like, it seemed like both of them, it wasn't really my fault either way. Or something that my actions were. So basically, that I care about my numbers a lot in that game. I try to consistently be in the top 1% of performance on things. And I've been going through the list of these 8 fights in the most recent raid and making sure that I'm at the 99 percentile with all of them. There was one fight that I was consistently placing around like 96, 97% and could never get that 99%. In that fight, there is something that happens where one player gets randomly chosen, and they for like, I think it's a 20-second time period, they do a lot of extra damage, but then at the end of that, they die. So it's kind of a downside, but it's also like, in my mind, basically, the reason why I was not getting a 99 was because I wasn't being randomly chosen with that. It turns out last night, I changed absolutely nothing with how I handled the fight, changed nothing with what I did. I ended up getting a 99, and it ended up being because of the group that I was with was not killing the boss fast enough for my damage to be high enough to fall in that percentage level. So it was like the reason that I thought had happened was not at all the reason, but it was also not actually personal. You know, there was nothing that I needed to change with my personal actions to get there. I was doing the right thing each time. It just ended up being a literally a victim of circumstance. However, that is like we're isolating. That's normally what an excuse is. So that's like, you know, I mean, it's kind of a silly explanation or like silly situation because, you know, it's a video game, but it's like it was interesting to me that it kind of points to the problem we have with these two different ideas where like sometimes reasons are excuses or sometimes they're not, and there's a lot of like confusion that can happen in gray area there.
You read The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, right?
Yes, yeah.
You know the part where he mentions like the metrics that we use to measure things?
Yes, yeah.
I think that that is a very small part of a bigger goal. So I don't think that any of that is necessarily relevant. Like it might not even be a good metric. Because the point is, and correct me if I'm wrong, the point is to finish the task as quickly as possible as a team, right?
Well, that's like the goal of the group, but my personal goal is to improve my personal performance on each fight too.
But if your personal goal is tied to the actions of other people, then
Yes.
that goal might not be a good metric of your performance. Do you feel me?
Yes. Well, yeah, that is very true. Yeah. And I think that proved that to me, that it's not like there's nothing that I can do to change my actions that would change that. Yeah.
Right. So that doesn't necessarily, to me, that doesn't necessarily amount to an excuse because it is a valid, rational, and I would say somewhat measurable idea. But it's funny because I think this conversation brings us to a point in the subject matter here, which is who has an opinion you can look to or trust on this?
Yeah. Which with that, it's like, you know, I go to the data. You know, it's like in my mind the numbers don't lie. So that's where like that's why I use that as like a way to measure my performance, even though like you're pointing out there is more that goes into it than just my performance. It's true. Like, I mean, with any game, like if you play like a first person shooter, anything like that, like if it's a team based game, you can look at your KDR and be disappointed by, you know, your kill death ratio. However, a lot of that can fall to your teammates, even though that feels like an excuse, blaming like, oh, it's not me, it's these other four guys.
Yeah, I mean, one of the ways that can sort of be cleared up in like a gaming sense is when if you have a team-based game where you have squads or small groups that participate, that when you have to do it alone, that's when you figure out if you suck or not. But you know, Lee made the comment that, you know, he'd rather get a clean fight and have the group succeed than to maximize damage per second. But I mean, why not the two? Okay.
Yeah, why not both?
I can give you an example. I play military-based shooter type games, and I like to get a lot of kills, and I like to not die that much. And headshots are preferable. But if I have the least kills on my team, and we're playing a goal-based game where we need to like capture and control areas, or we need to well, actually, that's pretty much all that there is in there as far as goals go.
Okay.
Or we need to like plant an explosive in enough defended areas enough times and have it explode. I don't care how many kills I get. I want to get more. But for me, like at the end of the game, if it says victory, I'm like, woo!
Yeah.
And like that's that. And I really don't care about the other stuff. But I mean, in this case, like, I don't know that it's relevant.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know that it's something you should even worry about.
Well,
I mean, I get like, wanting to increase this thing and increase that thing.
Well, in the specific situation I was talking about, the two actually are kind of one and the same. As everyone in the group increases their DPS, the quicker the boss dies, the more people's lives you save, because he keeps throwing out that debuff that kills people the longer the fight goes on. So if you kill the boss in under 30 seconds, only one person gets that debuff, rather than if the fight goes over 30 seconds, the second person gets it, and you're gonna have two people die. Then the raid's gonna have to slow down and pick up two people rather than one. So in this situation, they actually do kind of feed together. But I do understand the point you're making. There are a lot of goals where it's not necessarily like you're talking about in a team-based game. It may not necessarily be, oh, the number of kills that I got actually helped the team in this way. I mean, like when we played Apex together, there's many times where our best performance, our highest placing games, where we're actually avoiding the combat a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And kind of camping in an area, and then eventually at the end, like, okay, now it's down to 3 teams. Now we third party this fight and we win.
And I think that maybe an important thing to recognize in these situations is there anything you can do, like you personally can do, to make any of that better?
Mm-hmm.
And if there is, then do that. And if there's not, well, then, I mean, what can you do?
Well, exactly, yeah. And that was kind of my main point, is that I knew for a fact that I was doing my rotation, everything correctly. There was nothing that I could change with my performance that was going to increase the amount of damage that I was doing. However, that also, like, even though I know that I'm being honest, that also still just feels like an excuse, because there is no part of it that is accepting any personal responsibility or accepting any accountability. But sometimes that's just true.
Well, no, I mean, it is, because I think that you are attempting to claim excessive responsibility or accountability in the situation, when in this case, it's a more valuable lesson that you recognize that there really isn't a lot that you can do.
Yes.
Like, I think it took for you to look at that and recognize, oh, this is the reason why this is happening. And I don't think that you're making an excuse for your performance, because that would, to me, an excuse would mean you were shirking some kind of responsibility. But it seems to me that you're taking full responsibility for everything that's in your control and like that you're capable of. And I think that it would be unhealthy for you to dwell on the actions of others.
Yeah.
Do you feel me?
Yes. I guess that the one thing. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Unless it's like a life or death situation, which, I mean,
yeah, of course, yeah,
it's a video game, so no.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But yeah, I guess the one thing that I actually could have done more would be to actually study the data more, look at the other people that were getting 99s, and I could have looked at their, I mean, because all the logs are public. I can look at literally everything that happened, and I could have shown myself that, hold on, here's multiple other mages getting 99s that did not get that debuff. That would have told me, I didn't use the resources at hand to really figure out what the real reason was. I kind of settled on like, oh, they're just lucky because they got this debuff, and well, lucky as in, you're going to die, unfortunately, but still, like lucky as you were chosen as the 1 out of 40 that got it. And for a brief little bit, you did more damage. But I guess it does come down to then like the real like lesson is like using the tools that you have at your disposal to make the accurate decision of, is this the core cause? And sometimes we're wrong, but I don't, like, in that situation, it's not, it was not necessarily an excuse, like you're saying.
Yeah, and I think that in some situations, certain individuals will attempt to take more responsibility than they actually like have.
Yeah. I think that's like kind of a fault of mine in a lot of situations, is I end up feeling like I'm at fault or feeling like there's something more that I could have done, when sometimes in reality it's not that way. But it's like, it's easy for me to blame myself, I think, a lot.
which is weird because it's easy for most people to blame others.
That is very true. Yeah.
Balance.
So
always with the balance on here.
So outside of situations like that where there is like data you can go to, circling back to the question, so who is an opinion that you can look to and trust? I would say, like, you know, going back to, I think it was our last episode, a real friend.
I can trust Ty.
No, I could trust
That's true.
distance.
I'll be like, bro, I can't believe all those people were so stupid about everything. And then you'd be like, you was a stupid one.
Yeah.
Mine brethren. Like, how so, sir? Like, and then we go on.
That is actually how we talk to each other in our personal lives. We do.
Yeah, we say that.
Yeah.
We come up with like perversions of Shakespearean English and we say them to each other.
Ooh, speaking of perversions, Big Dog's answer was a priest. I don't know about that. Their answer of who you can go to that has an opinion you could look to or trust, a priest. I mean, I guess if you are of the Catholic faith, that would be a resource, right? But I don't know. I mean, I guess like to broaden that up some, just a figure of authority that you trust their guidance and opinion.
My mouth has been hanging open for about 20 seconds, mainly because I can't tell if he said that in chat like as a legitimate response or if that was intended to be like ironic or facetious.
Facetious is how that's pronounced.
Facetious, facetious, if you will.
There we go.
Oh yeah, I can hear myself. It sounds awful.
Okay, it sounds like we're back. Okay, I may actually do some editing on this episode. I may have to cut out a few. Holy shit, Nate! I didn't know you were here. What's up, my dude?
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna have to on this one. We really have no choice. The other ones are just like us, like screwing up regular shit. But if they can't hear anything, yeah, gonna have to. This is one of those moments where I'm like, hey, I do none of the work. I love it.
Yeah, true. But yeah, so I guess like circling back to what I was saying, it comes down to, like we talked about in the last episode, having a quote unquote a friend, in the sense that someone that you can actually go to and get a reliable answer from in certain things, avoiding the type of friend that is just going to tell you like what you want to hear, and get an actual opinion from someone, whether or not you consider that person a friend. Like the example that I just gave of like if you were like a high school student or even like a college student going to I know in high school they're called like a guidance counselor, but like in college, you know, they have like that. There's like a counselor type person that you can go and speak to. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't consider them like a personal friend, but they could fill that role of literally giving you just objective, truthful advice on a situation.
Yeah, I think if you're paying somebody, is that Nate in chat? The Nathan that I think it is.
Yeah, you know him.
By the way, we live like a half mile away from each other.
Oh yeah, Nate.
I'm in that apartment complex, like right next to 421.
Yeah,
I ride by your place on my road bicycle all the time. So if you saw a guy in spandex recently, that was me.
I'm pretty sure he sees a lot of dudes in spandex, if you know what I'm saying.
Not these days, though. There's no business there. But you know, it's also like, I think that there's one of these things like where we accept somebody as having authority just because of a title. True. I think that it requires some experience. So like even with a therapist, you know, like which is someone that you expect as a mental health professional, that you're paying them to like, you know, give you the real shit. Mm-hmm. But I think that, you know, you have to sort of try on a few and whatnot.
Yeah.
I mean, some people just might be telling you what you know to make their money and shit, and then like get on out of there.
Very true. Yeah.
And that's like, and that's not to say that like there's not people that suck at their jobs that are mental health professionals. Exclusively people that suck at their jobs are everywhere. It's just unfortunate when it's someone that's getting paid to help others. But yeah, I think that it requires some test of credibility. Like,
yeah.
And maybe this is somewhat manipulative, maybe in the good way, maybe in the bad way. But you could just say something outlandish and completely ridiculous, or say or make up a situation that you did something unbelievably stupid, and see what they say, and then you can determine pretty quickly if they're a yes person.
That is mildly manipulative, but in a good way. I mean, that is a good test. Yeah.
Not all manipulation is necessarily bad, but that's a good way to figure it out. But like we talked about in our friend episode, the last one we did, some people want that. That's what some people are looking for.
Yeah.
And if that's the case,
but that's definitely not going to help you in this situation. If you're, well, I get, honestly, I'm doing this thing again where I tilt my head that way and look up. I'm gonna need a new way to look. That's gonna be my thinking spot over there now. But no, I would argue that probably the people that are interested in making a distinction between a reason and excuse would probably be the same people that are looking for an actual answer. I wouldn't see someone looking for a yes man as a friend as the type of person that would care oh, is this a reason or excuse? No, they want all of their excuses to be labeled reasons.
Yeah, if you're a yes man type of person, then just maybe just hit stop and don't listen to us anymore. You're not gonna like us.
Well, actually, we do have one episode probably perfect for them. Do you remember the How to Ruin Your Life episode?
Yep, there you go. Listen to that one.
Yeah, just take that episode, and none of it is satire. Just follow everything that we have to say. That probably is your speed.
I was thinking we should do a follow-up because I think we could give much better advice for how to ruin your life now.
Probably.
We're getting really good at this, and I think that we could be really good at helping people ruin their lives if that's what they want.
Go outside and lick every door handle you find.
No one can tell you not to. So yeah, it's the reality is that in most situations, it's really hard to find somebody you can rely on that's going to tell you the real deal.
True. Yeah.
Most people they dislike conflict in a certain context to the point that they're not even going to do anything helpful.
Yeah.
And some people, I would say that people that you work with are probably not reliable sources, because there's too much tiptoeing and human resources and being cordial and being civil and all this other crap that we have to wade through.
Yeah. Which doesn't necessarily count out. If you've got an outside of work relationship with a coworker, they may be a real friend, but just the general guy that's in the cubicle next to you, probably not.
And if you have a supervisor that's going to be forthcoming with you about things, then that's also can be good. But one thing that I think we need to caution on the other side is some people just want to talk shit about everybody.
Yeah, that's very common. Yeah.
And they want to tell you what's wrong with you, and they want to tell you what sucks about you, and they never want to do anything to figure anything out about themselves.
Yeah.
That's another good point, is I think that the most reliable people are the ones who themselves recognize their own excuses and realize when they're just talking a bunch of fluff to not do something.
That's a good test too. Yeah. That requires, having a good amount of rapport with this person already, and having previous conversations that you can look back on and determine their stance and idea on that. But yeah, that is a good marker.
It's gotta be. And all the things you mentioned are ways to build trust. And in that regard, it needs to be someone you trust.
Yeah. Which is kind of funny. We circled the question was who has an opinion that you can look to or trust? And it kind of came around to someone whose opinion you trust, which is it's almost a non-answer. But as far as when you take into context the whole idea we explored, I think we did get to an answer, but the answer is it does lie within the question. So where when and where does this affect us?
Every Martha Fletchin day.
Pretty much, right? Yeah, that's I kind of didn't want to go give in my notes. I tried to avoid having that broad of an answer, but that is true. I think we do this all the time with everything from little to big things.
Yeah, it's when we did the movie talk about killing of a sacred deer.
Yeah.
By the way, guys, don't see that movie. It's fucked up. Or if you want to, just realize that that's what it is.
I would say, yeah, by the way, guys, see that movie. It's fucked up.
Yeah. It's like, oh, bro, this smells so bad. Smell this.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, yeah. We were talking about justice.
Yeah.
That somehow we always want that for other people. But when it comes to ourselves, we always seem to want to give ourselves a second chance.
We seem to make excuses. Why we don't deserve justice in this situation. Yeah.
It's like, so in the same regard, you may want to tell everybody else how they're screwing this thing up and blaming it on this person or that person. But if we take the time to recognize our own screw ups and our own situations in which we make rationalizations or excuses for the things that we do, then that's more valuable to us than pointing the finger at other people. Because all that is just like it's just a waste of time. And what can you really do? That there's no power, no control you have over that situation.
Yeah.
And I think that once we recognize those things in ourselves, then we can feel empowered to take action. Because I mean, it's easy to look at other people and talk about everything everybody else is screwing up, but there's really nothing that you can do. So worry about yourself.
And not only that, but like depending on how deep you get with it, a lot of times it can just kind of be depressing. Like if you want to, you start to look at the entire world and it's like, all right, what are all these people doing wrong? If it's not really affecting you, sometimes it's not really worth considering, because it can just be a shit ton of negativity, really.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Sorry, my right ear is getting fatigued. I had to take my earbud out.
That sounds like an excuse to me. Jeez.
Good to go.
So the other, another question that I like that you brought up in our texts preparing for this. So when recognizing this in others, like you said, I mean, this was your conversation. Let me let you kick this part off.
No. I'm kidding. Stop making excuses, Ty. Just because I brought it up, I'm just kidding. It's actually, this is a good reason, I think. Well, I think that sometimes when we fail to recognize someone else's situation and the full like breadth of their responsibility, particularly in the workplace, that's when we start to accuse others of making excuses for things rather than citing reasons. And me, in my career spanning a decade now, I'm so old, a little over a decade of being an IT guy, it's a very damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. I'm not like one of those IT guys that like something just starts working on its own. They're like, oh, whatever you did fixed it. I'll be like, oh, I have no idea why it wasn't working before, or why it's working now. As opposed to like, well, I reconfigured the TLC on the FBI interface. Like, I'm not one of those guys. I don't do that. But there are situations in which you give somebody a valid reason for something working or not working in a specific way, and because of their lack of understanding about it, they will accuse you of making an excuse.
Yeah, I'm sure that happens quite often. Yeah.
It's one of those moments where it's like, you must understand that your opinion of this is not valid. So you actually have no place or credibility to accuse anyone of making an excuse in this situation.
Yeah.
And because I've had so much experience with that I'm not going to do the same thing with anybody else. Now, perhaps if it's someone that's on my team and I can recognize and understand what could or couldn't have been done in the situation, another IT person, but that's because I have information and knowledge of that. Exactly, and if someone on my team accuses me of making an excuse, I'm going to seriously consider that. And be like, did I screw something up here? Because they have validity in this situation. But I will never, ever, because, I had someone that did a slightly different job say something about someone else's job I don't understand why they don't do this thing. That's ridiculous. We're paying for that. We should get all the use out of it. I'm like, but they do a haha job and you do a ho-ho job.
Well, I think the most important words in his sentence were the first three. I don't understand.
And that's like ask questions. So
yeah,
what I did is I'll just well, the thing is I work with a lot of these. So I'll say analytical chemist, and then I'll say engineer of some kind. I work with a lot of those and a lot of that. An analytical chemist was talking about a thing that an engineer, specifically a chemical engineer, obviously it's a chemical company, they were doing in their job responsibilities, and that we should be doing this and doing that and doing this. And so I spoke to someone else that had a similar job as the person being accused of screwing up.
Okay.
And I was like, could you explain to me, please, why there's this being left out of this process? Because it seems like we could be doing that instead. And then this person gave me 3, 4, 5 valid reasons why the specific task was not being done in this fashion. And I was like, huh. Because I actually asked the individual that was mentioning this to me, I was like, have you talked to the individual that's responsible for this? Like, yeah, he doesn't care. And after I like talked to someone else with expertise in this area, I was like, oh, the reason why he didn't care when that other guy told him is because what he was saying was stupid. Possibly,
yeah.
It's like he wasn't even going to waste his time with that. So it was a situation in which there must be a reason. Like sometimes there are things that are happening where I'm like, I don't understand that, but there has to be a reason why.
As much as I fucking hate this saying, it is sometimes true that everything happens for a reason. However, the reason may be random, but like you're saying, like there is I guess the better term is cause. There is always a cause. Whether or not it is a actual what we would consider a valid reason, there is always a cause.
I feel like we should have a religious debate now.
Oh God. I don't think we could do that because I think we're too much on the same side.
I'll be devil's advocate. I can do it. I'm good.
Okay, sweet. So you're going to be the atheist. Okay, sounds good.
Wait, what? Have you prayed about this?
Of course, every day. But no, I do. I think that's a very good, like the situation you're pointing out. I think it's a very good just lesson overall, that it's like we need to step back, we need to think, because it is way too easy to see our own excuses as reasons and way too easy to see other people's reasons as excuses.
Yep, it goes back to the justice thing.
Yep, exactly.
It's the somewhat narcissistic, self-centered idea of all of it, that somehow like everybody deserves the worst for what they do, and we all deserve a second chance for ourselves.
Yep. Because of X, Y, and Z. Yep.
Yeah, because I mean, there are situations where it is important to recognize how worthless your opinion is in the situation.
Yeah, and that's a humbling thing to experience, and it, like, I mean, can be kind of shitty sometimes, but it is very often true. Sometimes you don't know and you don't understand, and you have to be honest with yourself and admit that, or you're doing yourself a great disservice.
Yeah. And I mean, it feels very good when I can ask somebody the question, have I ever told you how to do your job? And I know factually the answer is 100% no, because I never tell anybody how to do their job because I don't know. But yeah, it's like that. It's not always necessary that when you think you're calling somebody out for the excuse that they're making, if you don't have a large amount, or at least a credible amount of experience or understanding of that thing, you got no place calling anybody out for anything.
Yeah, that is very true. Yeah.
And so I know that you mentioned that, when I said that about, recognizing excuses in others, that when it's appropriate to give advice to the others, I would say only if you 100% know that you know what the fuck you're talking about.
Well, I mean, even
which is rare, by the way.
I was
me, at least
correct, yeah, but I was even saying more in the line of like unsolicited advice. If you're talking to someone, like, I mean, for instance, yeah, if you're just having a conversation with someone that you don't have, you know, a close relationship or anything, you know, it's like you may realize that they are just making excuses for something. But at a certain point, it's like, you know, does it matter to me to point this out to them? Or it's like, or will it benefit either of us in any way? Or is it just going to, you know, make them feel uncomfortable because they're, you know, they're getting close to realizing something negative about themselves, and then it's going to be, you know, it's just a negative experience.
Bro, hit them with the 5 whys.
That's not bad. That's not bad.
That doesn't necessarily have to be accusatory. You can actually just assist somebody else in getting to a conclusion. And you might even, in the process of trying to ask them to sort of talk through something with them, you might actually recognize they're not making excuses at all.
True. Yes, that's true.
Yeah. Or you might get to the point where they recognize that they do, and they'll either accept that and try to get better or run away from it.
Yeah. When it's also, yeah, I guess, like, in all reality, stepping back and analyzing the situation that I was kind of laying out there, it's almost like, okay, so here's this person coming to me wanting me to be a yes man for them. You know, a lot of times, you know, I don't want to do that. I'm not willing to do that. So if they, you know, if they're putting me in that position, they're probably going to get an answer that they're not happy with, but it's not going to be because it's untrue. I think we've both been put in situations like that regarding, like, people's fitness and stuff. If you know, like, they'll come to you for advice, but like basically all they want to hear is like, oh yeah, well, you know, of course, yeah, this is why I'm not in shape, because of this problem. Like,
and sometimes there is a thing that will make that more challenging. But there's a reason why "how bad do you want it" is a cliche. Yeah, it doesn't even have to be a physical fitness. It's whatever thing it is.
Yep. I completely agree.
I mean, I could even take it to something like the episode of Metalocalypse where Pickles was accused of not being a real alcoholic.
I don't remember that.
He said, someone said I wasn't an alcoholic, so today I'm going to drink the most I've ever drank. Ever. So he just really badly wanted to prove that he had a problem.
That's ridiculous.
I mean, it's somewhat of like a backwards, like self-destructive suggestion, but no matter what it is, it's like if you want anything bad enough, then you won't make excuses for yourself. You'll just attain that.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, do you have anything else you wanted to touch on?
Not really.
Good. I think we nailed it then. I'm gonna assume, and you know what happens when people assume, but I'm gonna assume that you have a quote for this.
Yes, I do.
Let me hear it.
Wow, this is actually pretty crazy. So once again, I know that if you study your things, that sometimes people that we revere as historical figures did fucked up shit. So once again, I'll go back to the thing I said about Bill Cosby, that just because somebody has done some stuff that's not so great doesn't mean that no truth can come from their mouths.
Oh God, did you choose a Hitler quote again?
What? Are you
again?
fucking kidding me? Okay, you know what? I'm going to search to find if he actually said anything worthwhile. Challenge accepted, sir. Challenge accepted.
Oh God. This is, dude, you realize, like, with my haircut, I can't be on a podcast with Hitler quotes. Like, I'm going to
Probably after this he's listening to Rammstein and reading Mein Kampf.
I'm rocking the Hitler Youth cut. I can't do this.
And mine's like an unkempt one, but so if you're not watching this on YouTube, you should, because then you can see our awful haircuts. Actually, his is, he's a little whiter than me, so I feel like it. Yeah. All right. It is better to offer no excuse than a bad one. George Washington.
Oh, nice. That's going to bring us to the end of another episode of the Metacast podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube and you've enjoyed the conversation, please hit the like button, subscribe to keep up to date with our show, and comment below and tell us an excuse that you've given recently. If you're interested in further taking part in the conversation or even joining us as a guest on a future episode, you can join our Discord. The link is in the description down below. And we will be live next week, Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on twitch.tv/TylerTV. Thank you for listening and have a great week.